This is the master schedule process for William Keppel Elementary in Troy, Missouri. The current scheduling process right now is first and foremost, my leader looks for adding another section to each grade level based on the population increases provided from our superintendent. So we are in an area where the population is constantly increasing, especially within our school boundaries. So making sure that we are prepared in the case of having to add another section. What does that look like for our master schedule? What does that look like for classroom availability, for our teachers' schedules, and making sure we have the coverage for that. Then we move on to plugging in lunch and recess coverage. With each grade having to be there at a different time, we are making sure that there's staff coverage there, as well as availability and smooth transitions allowed during this time. My leader then moves on to the special schedule. At our special schedule, we have art, music, PE, and library. They are all right next to one another in our main hall, what we call the cupola. But what she does there is she makes sure that each class is alternating from one special to the next from day to day. So she plugs that into the schedule next. Following that, she makes sure that interventions and the times and the coverage for each group is plausible. So with having so many different teachers working with small groups during these intervention times, it's imperative that my leader is making sure that the times do not overlap. So for instance, I am a special education teacher for grades 3 through 5. My leader has to make sure that I am not overbooked in the sense of having an intervention group for third grade as well as fourth grade at the same time. So then she plugs in intervention times and what's going to make sense for the special education teachers, the curriculum coaches, and the Title I teachers. She then looks at prep time for staff members. What time is that going to be? When is their plan time going to be? And what does that look like for PLC meetings? During our plan time, we meet weekly, and making sure that all the staff members that need to be present during that PLC meeting have the same prep time. Finally, she looks at hallway transitions. We have one large hallway is our school. So making sure that the transitions avoid congestion and instructional distractions for all grades. The timeline of scheduling process. So around December and January, the leadership team meets to discuss feedback on current building schedule. So whatever that year may look like for the existing school year, they decide, okay, what is working and what is not. Then the educational leader, our principal, takes the feedback to incorporate for following school year's master schedule. In January and February, our educational leaders from each elementary school in the district discuss possible changes to master schedule in their building and make changes based on feedback and ideas from neighboring schools. Each one of our schools in our district is very unique. For instance, at our school, we have an exceptionally high special education population. So our master schedule may look extremely different from a neighboring school within the district, but just having my principal bounce ideas off what that may look like and what strategies the other principals are using can help provide a master schedule that works for everyone. In March and April, the educational leaders construct drafts of master schedules in an Excel document based on feedback from the neighboring leaders and leadership team. So in March and April, my assistant principal and my principal will sit down and they will start doing a rough draft of the master schedule based on what they heard from the leadership team and also from the building principals and assistant principals from the district. In May, the educational leaders present that draft that they've constructed of the master schedule to the leadership team, and take feedback to make final changes. So of course, this is not the final draft in May. what they're doing is just presenting it to the leadership team and saying, this is what we have so far. What do you think will work and what might be conflicting in the schedule? In August, the final draft of the master set schedule is sent out to all the staff members to prepare for the upcoming school year. The data used in the decision making for the master schedule, first and foremost, my principal works with the superintendent to discuss the population increases that are presented to building leaders to determine which grade levels will need to add another section for the upcoming school year. Again, this is really dependent on when parents register, but to be proactive and understanding that if we were to add another section to this grade level, what would that look like for our master schedule? Then reading and math STAR data. STAR is the universal assessment tool that we use within Troy School District. And it's used to form classes to ensure what each group of students will need and align with this teacher's resources. They take map data to form classrooms to understand which one would need co-teaching, and then they take that into consideration when making the master schedule in regard to when the co-teacher is going to be able to push into those classrooms. Feedback from the staff in each department is considered to ensure schedule will allow for individual student progress. And finally, discipline data is considered when forming schedule to ensure that resources and restorative practices can be implemented for the following school year. The staff involved in the scheduling process are the principal, the building leader, the assistant principal, our special education site coordinator, curriculum coaches, our math and ELA coaches, our leadership team, which includes all department heads from each grade level, and then also our school counselor. The reason why our special education site coordinator is involved, again, is because we have such a high special education population compared to other schools in the district, that we need to understand that all of our students with an IEP and 504 are receiving the services and minutes that they need to. So that plays into our scheduling process as well. Some process improvements that I spoke with my administrator that can and should be implemented. One is out of our control, and that's teacher and staff shortages for coverage. Of course, everyone in the nation is experiencing this, but when we have a master schedule that we're trying to implement for the following school year, it's important that we understand that there is the right amount of student to teacher ratio. Sometimes that is really difficult, especially when we're talking about co-teaching classrooms or students with IEPs. So what would improve this process is just getting more teacher and staff coverages. Second, registration deadline moved up to ensure changes in schedule, such as having to add a new section within a grade level. So for instance, last year, about 2 days before we started school, we had to add a kindergarten section because of the population increase within our school boundaries. So if there is a way to figure out what that data may look like, our superintendent gives us a report of what our population increase will be so that we can plan for those things. But moving the registration deadline up for parents may allow for a little bit of a proactive approach on the master schedule rather than a reactive approach on our side. And then finally, more collaboration throughout the year among building leaders from the district to discuss best processes in schedule creation. One of the biggest things that my building leader talked to me about was when she first started, she was overwhelmed with the master schedule. She said it's like a bunch of puzzle pieces trying to fit together. And there are many, many drafts that go along with this. And I think that if there were more collaboration among the building leaders within our district to talk about what those processes may be like, it may allow for a smoother process in the long run. I know that each demographic and each student population is very different within our district, but having an opportunity for, as an educational leader, to bounce ideas off of other building leaders to see what they have done to solve previous problems is very important. And I think having a structured, professional environment to do so will help with this process in the future.